Primo in sto video c'è l'intervista al regista di The Sadness, Rob JABBAZZ. Ma cosa vi stiamo portando? Ma cosa vi stiamo portando? E non è neanche finita qui, ci saranno tante interviste prossimamente. Secondo, oggi è l'ultimo giorno in cui potete preordinare il libro di Cinema degli Eccessi.
Non fate i JABBAZZ.
Non fate i JABBAZZ della situazione, andate a preordinare il libro, perché l'almanacco del disgusto con i 100 film più estremi della storia è, ecco, con tutti gli extra, i poster, le mie sboglie, arriva solo se lo preordinate entro oggi, poi basta.
Siccome senza i fluidi corporei, no.
Sai il sacchetto del vomito?
Ti arriva pieno?
Pieno.
Esatto. Bello.
Ho ancora il suo bulbo oculare fresco sul mio uccello.
Il più depravato e violento zombie infetti movie mai realizzato, una cascata infinita e appassionante di sangue e disagio, dove la liberazione dell'istinto violento e sessuale dell'uomo viene contestualizzata ovviamente in una pandemia, ma che nell'ottica della nostra pandemia assume un significato più alto. Come dissi alla sua uscita, per me The Sadness è meraviglioso, uno dei migliori horror degli ultimi anni. Recuperate la bellissima edizione home video di Midnight Factory, che non ho qua perché ce l'ho a casa dei miei, come se ve la stessi mostrando. Beh, uguale. È sconvolgente sto film, certo, anche i più navigati di noi in qualche scena diranno soddisfatti un bel "ah ma bravi", è molto sconvolgente, ma lo è anche per noi amanti degli eccessi? Scopriamolo insieme a REGISTA. Buongiorno a tutti pagliacci e bentornati a Cinema degli Eccessi. Ma cosa vi stiamo portando in questo periodo? Cosa? Ma tu l'avresti immaginato di avere Rob JABBAZZ qui a Cinema degli Eccessi? JABBAZZ! Ma quante interviste belle e succose! Ma veniamo a noi. Introduciamo un attimo The Sadness, horror uscito a cavallo tra il 2021 e il 2022 e presentato a diversi festival, tra cui il Locarno. Ha avuto il plauso di critiche e pubblico. Da noi è uscito direttamente in un video, come abbiamo detto, per Midnight Factory, che lo ha anche doppiato. The Sadness è un bagno di sangue e sesso, poiché il virus Alvin
rock and roll. Spero che si parta adesso. Alvin Superstar.
Il virus Alvin Superstar, Alvin Rock and Roll, che scatena l'infezione, è proprio questo che fa. Tira fuori l'istinto omicida e la libido sessuale, portandola all'estremo.
Spesso infrange i cuori, che gran ruba cuori.
Quindi Alvin Metalcore, Alvin Metal Star.
Un mix tra Alvin e il panda molesti sessuali di South Park.
A altissimi livelli.
Chi vive nell'est sotto un bambù, il panda molestie sessuali.
Un film uscito praticamente ancora durante la nostra pandemia e che parte dalle stesse premesse, tra negazionisti e virologi che non vengono ascoltati, trattati come opinionisti e non come scienziati. Già il sangue è tanto, se in più ci aggiungiamo la dimensione della violenza sessuale, il tutto diventa davvero pesante e sconvolgente. Pare che questo virus entri nel nostro subconscio, annichilendo lì il superio e lasciando da solo l'es, l'istanza intrapsichica dedicata alla libido e alla pulsione di morte, quella che da piccoli impariamo a mettere da parte per vivere con gli altri, quella del mero egoismo. Un po' come aveva fatto coscientemente Cronenberg nel Demone sotto la pelle. Fatto sta che ogni situazione, per quanto grottesca e ai limiti dell'assurdo, superata la pandemia, non pare proprio irreale. Anzi, al netto della violenza, tutto ciò che ci ruota attorno sembra drammaticamente e ridicolmente credibile e già sentito e già vissuto. Ma ora basta. La smetto di parlare perché è il turno del regista. Abbiamo l'onore di avere qui con noi il regista di The Sadness, Rob JABBAZZ. Dunque, a lui la parola.
Hey, all right, let's get started. So the first question.
Cominciamo dalla genesi dell'opera. Come ti è venuta in mente una storia simile? Qualcuno dice che sia ispirata dal fumetto Crossed, e da canadese perché hai deciso di ambientarlo a Taiwan?
I had the order from my boss at the time to do a movie. He wanted a zombie movie. He wanted something about pandemic because the COVID pandemic was just beginning, and he wanted to make something that was topical, like something that people cared about at the time. So he was like, "Yeah, write a zombie movie, and I'll finance it." And I said, "Okay." And then I thought, well, that's really boring. What can we do to make the movie more interesting? And I was thinking, like, well, if somebody is chasing you and they want to kill you and eat you, that's kind of like, that's kind of boring, you know? I mean, it is a scary idea if you really think about it, but we've seen it so many times that it's become boring. So then I thought, well, what if somebody is chasing you and they want to fuck you to death, you know? I thought, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that's the way to make it interesting, you know? Maybe that's the way to go.
L'unica cagna, non mi arrenderò finché non ti avrò scopata a sangue.
And then I remembered the comic book that I had read many years ago, in maybe like 2010 or 2012 or something, crossed, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that comic. So I kind of like looked through it again, and I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like this. And I thought, like, well, whatever, who cares, you know? I mean, they haven't made a crossed movie yet, and it's you know, it's been over 10 years since that comic came out, so whatever, I don't care. Like, I mean, the comic is basically just kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde anyways, or the Crazies or something. So it was a good idea, and I felt like the idea was pretty general, like just sort of, what if there's a virus that makes you crazy and horny? Like, it's pretty basic. So I thought, whatever, I'll write my own story, I'll have my own characters, so I'll make it my own thing. Why did I decide to set it in Taiwan? I didn't decide to set it in Taiwan. I just was in Taiwan, and I had the opportunity to make a Chinese movie. You know, it's like, hey, do you want to make a movie? Yes. Okay, but it has to be in Chinese. Oh, can we make it in English? No, it has to be in Chinese. Okay, I'll try. I'll do my best. You know, that was the situation. I just was put into a situation that completely random. I just stumbled into it, but I ended up making a movie that I think a lot of people liked. Sometimes things just happen, you know?
You know Chinese.
I know Kung Fu.
I can do some stuff. To do a whole movie in Chinese and to direct a crew of people and to direct actors in Chinese, my Chinese is not good enough for that. So I needed, just like you, I needed like a translator, I need some help. In the end, okay, I'll say this too, this is not part of the question, but in the end, what I kind of realized is that I have to kind of make this film from the perspective of a person watching a foreign film. In other words, like, the experience of this film is going to be, the subtitles on the bottom is going to be part of the viewing experience, you know? Like, that's because, you know, I'm watching a movie that, or sorry, I'm making a movie that's not in a language that I understand very well. So like, I have to make it from that perspective because I'm the director, right? So I think that's maybe a reason why plays pretty well to an international audience, is because it's a very easy movie. You could watch it even without subtitles, and I think it would still make a lot of sense to people, you know? But anyways, let's move on.
La nostra pandemia mi pare fondamentale per comprendere meglio il film. Secondo te il Covid ha tirato fuori il peggio da noi esseri umani?
I don't think that COVID brought out the worst in human beings. I think that COVID just happened and the world reacted accordingly. I think I don't really have any opinion on that kind of thing. I think that in the past, to deal with big global problems like diseases, like diseases that are widespread, like I don't know, smallpox or like rubella or what's another one, polio, like things like that. Like they have to be kind of like global action, like the UN has to get together and they have to do something for the whole world. In the past, people had enough trust in the system so that was okay, and people were just kind of like, okay, cool, like let's just play along and hopefully we can help to solve this problem with the world, with this disease. Today, I think that just especially like Americans, Westerners at large, I believe that they don't really have as much faith in the system anymore. And when you get something like COVID, in order to solve the problem, there really needs to be a kind of international cooperation, and also like a cooperation within a country. And people are just kind of like, they don't have the trust in the government. They feel like the government fucks with them too much, and they just feel like everybody who's in power is corrupt. And then there's no trust. If there's no trust, then this kind of problem cannot be really solved. And then there's also like this other added consideration of for-profit pharmaceutical companies that people believe are only in this business to make money. And in the past, you know, it's like the capitalist competitive model is supposed to help to create better drugs. You know, like the one that works is the one that's profitable. Therefore, there's an incentive to make one that works the best and harms the least people. You know, I don't know. Like there's all these things to think about, and I'm sure that we've had, like, you know, talking about the pandemic in 2024 is like just it's like a boring kind of stale subject to be talking about. So I won't talk about it too much, but whatever. That's my answer for that.
Quanto vi siete divertiti e quanto è stato impegnativo girare le scene più splatter? La scena più divertente da girare qual è stata?
It's not, I mean, you know, it's not fun in the sense that like you're making a movie, and every day when you go to the set, it's like immediately the clock starts ticking, and as the clock starts ticking, your money starts just burning, and you're just stressed out, and you're just trying to make the movie happen. So like it's not really fun. It's just sort of like work. So it's hard for me to think of it in those terms. The one thing I will say is that, like, when we started trying to use like traditional blood bags, like where it's like, you know, like a flat plastic bag underneath someone's shirt that you stab with like a fake knife. I was finding that, especially on the train scene, those blood bags just weren't dramatic enough. What we started doing was just getting like large, like, you know, just going to the supermarket and buying like large, like you know, Ziploc bags, and then just like filling them full of blood, but like filling them full of blood, but not closing them, just like having them open and taping them, and then just like hitting them, and then the thing would splash, and it would create like a much messier effect. And on the train scene, the camera is very energetic. Having that kind of like those big dramatic splashes of blood was necessary, because like the more realistic kind of blood spray or whatever is it was just you wasn't even picking up really on the camera. I was looking at playback, and I was like, I can't even see any violence here. It needs to be bigger. It needs to be more exaggerated. So that's sort of, it's not really like what was the funniest scene or a funny story. It's more just kind of like, I think it's kind of an interesting solution. We had to just fill up sandwich bags full of blood and then just like splash them all over the place. I guess that's kind of fun.
La scena della metropolitana mi pare fondamentale, ci presenta il tormento principale delle due protagoniste femminili. Ci spieghi il significato del vecchio molestatore? Mi pare ci siano temi simili alla tua serie animata Grit Dina. A proposito, a quando il terzo episodio? Si è salvata?
I am a child who has two siblings, and both of my siblings are sisters, and they're both younger than me. Big brother in my family, and because of that, I guess I have a certain way of thinking about women, because my younger sister, you know, I have two younger sisters, so like I feel, I guess, protective of them, and when I write female characters, I kind of think of them from that perspective, like from the perspective of like, you know, okay, well, you know, this is my sister, so I kind of try to write them in a way where it's like, you know, if they were to be confronted by someone who has bad intentions, I want the dialogue to reflect kind of what I would want them to say if someone said that to them, or I would want them to behave in that way, you know, or maybe not. Maybe like there's a scene, maybe in a different film, there's a scene where, well, or even in The Sadness, like Molly, for example, like Molly, very bad things happen to her, you know, but I just try to think like, what would affect me the strongest emotionally. So I guess that's just the way, that's kind of the answer, I guess. Like the answer is just like, I have 2 younger sisters, and I think that informs how I write female characters, both in a good way and also in kind of a bad way. Like if I want my female characters to win, and if I want them to suffer, what I need them to go through in order to create the emotions. Regarding Great Dana, I did 2 Great Dana cartoons. They're a lot of work. Right around the time I finished the second one, I started to make money doing animation, and I had to put all the Great Dana stuff kind of on hold indefinitely. I will say this, that there was a period of time where I had some interest in Great Dana, and I was trying to sell it to as a TV show, and I wrote a big, huge, long bunch of material. I did all kinds of artwork. I pitched it to a bunch of different studios, but in the end, no one really wanted it because I think that they felt like it was too like sexually political or something. So it kind of just didn't go anywhere. I'll do another Great Dana if someone wants to pay me to do it, but until then, I don't think Great Dana is coming back unless I can make it profitable, because I'm not getting any younger. I need to do stuff that makes me money.
Complimenti per la scena del palo e delle palle, davvero divertente.
Not really a question, but thank you very much.
In genere infetti e zombie perdono la propria coscienza, perdono il linguaggio. Qui invece viene mantenuto, ragionano e perpetrano la violenza volontariamente. Spiegaci questa scelta, se magari Freud e Les hanno influito.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to what the first thing I said. I believe that we need to add something to a zombie movie to make it scary. Adding a sexual element to it, and also adding like a very deliberate intention. Like I'm doing this because I want to do this. I'm doing this because I want to hurt you. These kinds of ideas I think are very special because it makes it more scary. It actually, these ideas of malice and malevolence I think are actually what make things scary. Like I'm doing bad things to you because that gives me pleasure. What's scarier than that? With the zombie in the George Romero film, the zombie is doing it because he doesn't know any better. It's not his fault, but in the sadness, they know what they're doing and they like what they're doing, and that is the reason why it's scary. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, violence is the question that I just answered. Okay, let's think about this for a second. We see so much violence in films. We see violence in action films, and like it happens all the time. There's violence where someone gets punched in the face and we laugh. Someone gets kicked in the balls and we say, aha, that's so funny. There's a scene in a movie where a guy gets raped in prison and we go, aha, that's so funny, haha. Like it's very, very interesting, the kind of things that we all the kinds of violence that we take in, and why some of them we think are okay and why some of them we think are not okay. And I think that with my film, I was really thinking about that a lot, and I was thinking about and I think that there are scenes in The Sadness, like for example let's say the train scene. Let's say the scene in the beginning where the oil goes on the guy and she rips off the guy's face. For me, these things are kind of fun. They're like Peter Jackson kind of vibes, it's fun violence, and they make some of us in the audience smile and our eyes get bright, and we're like, wow, I love this, And then there are also some moments in the film too where acts of cruelty happen, and maybe these scenes are less fun, Like for example, the part where Molly gets raped in her eye, and I think that's interesting, and I think that playing with those kinds of ideas and kind of going back and forth between the kind of violence that's fun and the kind of violence that's uncomfortable is interesting. Quality of violence will probably be in other films that I make, and maybe it's kind of in, like I would say that it's in a lot of the stuff that I make in general. Like I like to kind of get close to create a close connection between things that are fun and things that are uncomfortable, and kind of like get between the two and kind of create a situation where you're having fun, but you also kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable because you question, like, should I be laughing at this, or should I be, I don't know how to feel about this. I think those kinds of things are interesting. Those kinds of emotions are interesting.
You reach a perfect balance in these two types of violence for me.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I mean, I'm not sure how perfect it is. I think maybe as we make more things, maybe I can create an even more perfect or an even more balanced kind of a way to do this kind of stuff. As I said before, we see so much violent stuff on TV and in movies and stuff, and I just think it's important to try to maybe not make that so easy, because violence is pretty horrible. I mean, we're like right now we're watching videos constantly of Palestinian kids like losing their arms and their legs and shit, and it's that's violence, like that's what it's like, and there's nothing fun about that. But at the same time, Rambo is still a fun movie to watch. Dead Alive is still a fun movie to watch. The Friday the 13th movie is fun, and I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, that's not fun, because it is. But I think it's worth thinking about. I think that violence is worth thinking a little bit more deeply about. So that's what I try to do, I guess. And I think horror is a perfect genre to do that in.
Parlaci del resto della tua carriera e della tua arte, illustrazioni, fumetti, cortometraggi.
The rest of my career, art illustrations. Right now, I'm doing a comic called Black Urn. It's on my Patreon. I don't have very many followers, but I don't really care. I don't really promote it, but it's something that I'm doing as sort of a storytelling exercise. I write 1 page a day. I don't plan the book. I wake up, I drink a coffee, and I just go, okay, well, what's going to happen today? Well, yesterday he was in the basement and he was masturbating with a giant worm. Okay, well, let's see what happens next. And then so I do the page, and then I finish that around 2:00 in the afternoon, and then I go and I do the things I need to do, and then I get into bed at night and I start thinking, I wonder what I'm going to do tomorrow for Black Urn when I wake up, and that's the process of doing it. Right now I'm on page 90, so it's very long, ongoing comic. I think it's very fun. As I said, it's an exercise in storytelling. It's sort of a way for me to, it's almost like working out, like going to the gym, but for storytelling. I write so much, and I pitch so much ideas, trying to get like the next movie to go through. And Black Urn, my comic book, is just sort of a way for me to have a finished piece of work that I make by myself, as opposed to a screenplay that I write, has to be approved by a bunch of people, and I have to be able to get the budget, and then maybe I can make it. But at the end of the day, a screenplay is just a plan for something else, right? But a comic is a finished piece of work, and that's important to me. So that's why I do that. That's all I'm working on right now. I will say that I am very actively working. I can't say too much, but I am working on something new, a film. It's going to be really great. You guys are going to like it a lot, but it's going to be very different from The Sadness, I'll tell you that much.
Tra i film che ti hanno scioccato e magari in generale i tuoi gusti cinematografici, film, registi.
To be honest, you know what? Like, I don't really get shocked by films. Like, when I see something that, like, I don't know, like Irreversible, whatever, just like these like very violent, like disturbing films, I don't really think of them as being disturbing. I think of them more as being like effective, strong. Like that was fucking awesome. Like the way that kind of like wrenched me around and really played with my emotions and made me feel very strong feelings. Like that's how I feel about films that are disturbing, but I don't really feel disturbed by them because it's just a movie. It's just art. It's just pretend, right? As I said before, I feel like things that I see on the news, videos of I don't know, like people fucked up on drugs, people in a state of war, just people being cruel to each other in real life. Like that's disturbing to me. Like that's actually disturbing. Artists making effective art when I watch something, like when I watch like Gaspar Noé's films, let's say, for example, that's the only thing I can think of right now. I don't know, like any sort of filmmaker that does like sort of extreme Tom Six, let's say, I don't know, who the fuck knows. But these movies that are like disgusting, or these movies that are disturbing, I get excited, I get very happy, I get very positive when I see stuff like that, because it's just people expressing themselves and making like cool artwork, you know? I mean, that's what they're doing. It's not disturbing to me at all. It's amazing. It's the best. My cinema taste, just anything that's honest, anything that's like, that really comes from a personal place and from an honest place, I think I love it in a movie when something is talked about, and I'm sitting there watching the film and I go like, oh, like I've felt that before, that what the character is feeling right now, I've felt that before. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie where someone talks about that, you know, like Ari Aster's films, Midsummer. It's not my favorite of his films, but a character in that film who he wants to break up with his girlfriend, but this horrible thing happens where her whole family dies, like her sister kills herself, you know the film, and her parents die and everything. The guy is about to break up with her, but then tragedy happens, and then all of a sudden, like, if he breaks up with her, everyone's gonna just think he's a huge asshole, you know, so, and he's gonna feel too guilty, so he stays with her. So he actually thinks he's doing something noble, you know, but really he's fooling himself into believing he's doing a noble thing, when in fact he's just being a coward, you know. That every guy has done that before. Every guy has like stayed in a relationship where they're not actually interested, just because they think they're doing something. I don't want to hurt her, you know. I like stuff like that, where you see this stuff in Woody Allen movies as well. I really like. I recently started watching Woody Allen movies. I kind of was not interested in them for like a long time. So I'm watching all these like Woody Allen movies for the first time. I really like Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is one from the 90s. I think that's like an amazing movie. People usually talk about Annie Hall and Manhattan and stuff, but I think that Crimes and Misdemeanors is like my favorite one. I like it when Woody Allen's darker, like the more dark and cynical, I think is the best mode that I like.
Prossimo progetto?
Next project, can't tell you. Yeah, that's it.
Eccoci tornati, un grazie di cuore a Rob per aver accettato l'intervista. Quindi, se ti è piaciuto The Sadness, devi assolutamente guardare Train to Busan, consiglio ovvio e scontatissimo.
Bellissimo.
Cockney vs Zombie e Hell Driver, stesso regista di Tokyo Corporis. Devo aggiungere altro? E aggiungiamo alla scheda del film Budella 5 su 5. Quante ne volete? Davvero quante ne volete? Violenza psicologica 3 su 5. Il tormento e l'oppressione funzionano divinamente. Marciume 3 su 5. Alcune scelte di sceneggiatura, come lo scoparsi una cavità oculare, sono molto molto marci. Divertimento 5 su 5. Da tempo non trovavo qualcosa che mi intrattenesse così tanto. Trash 1 su 5, ma perfettamente calibrato. Il nostro ormai caro e consueto eccessometro per The Sadness di Rob JABBAZZ segna un grande 89%. Non un livello assurdo per arrivare al 90%, ma comunque turba e disagia. E con questo vi saluto, ricordatevi oggi ultimo giorno per il pre-order. Cosa uscirà settimana prossima? Chi lo sa?
Guarda, non so, scegliete voi, fate un po' quello che vi pare, tanto lui ha smesso.
Bella raga.
No, che ci stavo aspettando.
Ciao ragazzi, se vedremo.
Splash!
Nella prossima puntata di Cinema degli Eccessi.
Allora ragazzi, non so cosa esce settimana prossima, probabilmente o un'altra intervista della Madonna, gente in vacanza che torna dalla vacanza, succedono cose disastrose, super drammatiche, super violente, oppure un cult assoluto degli eccessi, un film esagerato.